Did F1 just get its new superpower? Or its next spectacular failure? Because while you were sleeping, America just dropped a financial warhead on Formula One, nearly $500 million to crash the gates and challenge Europe's monopoly on speed. Cadillac F1 is happening in 2026, and they just signed two drivers that everyone thought were done. Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, over 500 combined race starts between them, are about to prove that in America, we don't just participate, we dominate. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. This isn't just about racing. This is about respect. This is about showing the world that when America decides to play your game, we don't just play it, we rewrite the damn rules. Let me take you back to where this story really begins, because what you're seeing today is the result of the most brutal political fight Formula One has seen since the photo breakaway crisis in 2009. Remember Michael Andretti, racing royalty, American legend. The man came to F1 with a legitimate bid, serious money, and a plan that would have brought genuine American competition to the grid. We're talking about a guy whose father won the 1978 championship, the last American to do it. So, this wasn't some rich guy's hobby project. But Formula One management basically told him to get lost. The rejection wasn't just about money or facilities. Officially, Formula One said an 11th team wouldn't add enough value to the sport to justify the upheaval. Unofficially, sources close to the negotiations say the existing teams were terrified of slicing up the prize money pool even thinner. Think about it. F1's billions get split among 10 teams, and nobody wanted to share their slice with an American newcomer who might actually be competitive. Stefano Dominic Carey and the FOM basically said, "Thanks, but no thanks, America. We don't need your money, your fans, or your ambition." They wanted Andretti to buy an existing team, not create a new one. Classic gatekeeping. That was their first mistake. Here's what Europe doesn't get about America. We don't take no as rejection. We take it as fuel. Tell us we don't belong in your little club. Fine. We'll crash the gates and take the trophy instead. Enter Dan Towers and TWWG Motorsports. While everyone was writing obituaries for American F1 dreams, these guys were quietly building something that would make the old guard's head spin. Taurus is the guy who built Spy Motorsports in NASCAR from nothing into a legitimate operation. Cadillac didn't buy a ticket. They bought the whole ride. $450 million later, they're building a transatlantic race operation. So advanced, it makes other teams look like hobbyists. And here's the beautiful part. They kept Mario Andretti, the 1978 world champion, the last American to win an F1 title. They gave him a director role, basically telling the F1 establishment, "You rejected the son, but you're going to have to deal with the father watching over this operation." But they didn't. Stop there. They went out and hired the people who actually know how to win in F1. Graeme as team principal, the guy who kept Marussia competitive on a shoestring budget and somehow got them to 9th in the Constructors' Championship in 2014. Pat Simons as executive engineering consultant, a man who's forgotten more about F1 aerodynamics than most engineers will ever learn. This is the guy who helped design championship-winning cars at Benetton and Renault. Every move here is deliberate, aimed squarely at dismantling Formula One's complacency. Now, let's talk about timing, because in racing, as in life, timing is everything. Cadillac is joining F1 right as the sport hits reset. 2026 marks the biggest technical revolution since the hybrid era began in 2014. New power units with over 50% electric power, nearly tripling what we have today. Active aerodynamics will make DRS look prehistoric, and 100% sustainable fuels will rewrite how engines are built, tuned, and pushed to the limit. But here's the key part that casual fans might miss. When regulations change this dramatically, it's called a reset moment. All that accumulated knowledge that gives Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull their advantage becomes irrelevant overnight. Remember what happened in 2014 when hybrid engines were introduced? Mercedes dominated because they got the new rules right. In 2022, when ground effect returned, Red Bull nailed the regulations while Mercedes struggled for an entire season. These reset moments create opportunities for new teams to leapfrog established ones. And while established teams are going to be fighting their own muscle memory, trying to unlearn a decade of development philosophy, Cadillac gets to start with a clean sheet of paper. But here's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Infrastructure. Most new teams talk big and build small. Remember HRT? They were literally building their car in a shed manner. They were operating out of what looked like a glorified garage. Cadillac, they're building an empire. Multiple bases, one mission. Fishes, Indiana, the 400,000-foot headquarters where Cadillac's chassis and operations come to life. Concord, North Carolina, the power unit lab already under construction. Warren, Michigan, home to GM's technical brainpower. And across the Atlantic, a full European outpost near Silverstone because you can't run Formula One from America alone. The logistics would kill you. They're even testing in Toyota's wind tunnel in Cologne. And here's the kicker F1 nerds will love. Before they were officially accepted, Cadillac had unlimited wind tunnel access. They used it to get a massive head start on their 2026 car. Now that they're in, the rules kick in. Current teams are capped at about 40 runs a week. Scale down the more you win. Cadillac, they still get the maximum allowed, 115% of everyone else's time. It's not unlimited, but it's as close as you can legally get. And the engine strategy? Pure genius. They're starting with Ferrari power units in 2026. Proven, reliable race-winning technology. No rookie mistakes, no embarrassing DNFs, because your engine blew up on lap 3. Look at what happened to McLaren when they switched to Honda engines in 2015. 3 years of pain. Cadillac is avoiding that entirely. The real fireworks start in 2028. That's when GM plans to drop its own power unit, a move that could turn Cadillac from customer to constructor, from badge to builder. Imagine it. An American team with an American engine fighting Ferrari and Red Bull for wins. It's never happened before, but that's exactly what's on the horizon. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. The driver lineup that has everyone losing their minds. Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Two drivers who just months ago everyone was writing off as finished and past their prime. America just gave them a second chance. And if you know anything about second chances in American sports, you know they tend to be pretty spectacular. Let's start with Checo Perez. 39 podiums, 6 wins, but those numbers don't tell the real story. For years, this guy made underdogs look dangerous, dragging midfield cars into places they had no right to be. He's been the faster driver on Saturdays more often than not, and he's earned every point the hard way. But the Red Bull chapter? Brutal. Speed isn't the word for Verstappen anymore. What he does out there borders on impossible. Being his teammate is like playing basketball next to Michael Jordan. You can be elite and still look average. The media called Perez washed, but the truth, he's human, and Max Verstappen isn't. Now he's the number one again. The car's built for him, and he's done playing wingman. And here's the genius of Cadillac's move. Perez is quick and a simulator savant. The guy can feel what a car needs before the data even says it. Red Bull used him to fine-tune championship-winning cars. Now Cadillac gets that brain from day one. Then there's Bottas. 5 years next to Lewis Hamilton. 7 titles. Zero fear. You don't land that seat by accident. 10 wins, 67 podiums, 20 poles, and more than 50 front-row starts. Those aren't fluke stats. That's consistency at the highest level. The Alfa Romeo years were tough to watch. That car was a dog, and everyone knew it. But even in that machinery, Bottas was consistently outperforming his teammate and extracting every tenth the car had to give. He's already managing expectations for Cadillac, telling everyone to be realistic about the debut season. That wisdom is a veteran who understands that building a championship team takes time, patience, and the right foundation. He's seen what works at Mercedes, and he knows what doesn't work at Alfa Romeo. But here's the part that should have every American F1 fan absolutely losing their minds. Colton Herta, the development driver and American prodigy who's been on Formula One's radar for years. He had 9 IndyCar wins before turning 25, and he did it against veterans, twice his age. He was supposed to have an F1 seat already, but the sport's broken superlicense system shut the door. Now that door's creaking open again. Cadillac is clearly grooming him for a race seat in 2027 or 2028. Think about the narrative here. By 2028, we could have an American driver in an American car with an American engine fighting for podiums in Formula One. The last time an American won an F1 race was 1978. Mario Andretti. The circle is about to be complete. And let's be honest about something else. Perez and Bottas are 2 of the most underrated drivers of their generation. They've been in the shadow of generational talents their entire careers. Perez behind Verstappen, Bottas behind Hamilton. Now they get to be the stars of their own show. No politics, no team orders, no playing second fiddle to golden boys, just pure racing. If you don't think that's going to produce some fireworks, you haven't been paying attention. But let's zoom out for a second, because this story isn't just about one team, or 2 drivers, or even one season. This is about the fastest-growing F1 market in the world, finally getting the representation it deserves. American F1 viewership has exploded. We're talking about a 50% increase year over year. Drive to Survive introduced Americans to F1 and created an entire generation of obsessed fans. We've got 3 races now: Miami, Austin, Las Vegas. The sport is printing money in the United States. The Las Vegas Grand Prix generated over $1.3 billion in economic impact. Miami and Austin are selling out faster than Taylor Swift concerts. And yet, until now, American fans had to pick a foreign team to support. Had to cheer for drivers who couldn't find their home state on a map. You'd see Americans at races wearing McLaren gear or Ferrari shirts, but it always felt like borrowed enthusiasm. That changes in 2026. Cadillac F1 is giving 300 million Americans a reason to care about every single race. They're turning casual viewers into die-hard fans and creating the next generation of American motorsport enthusiasts. Think about what happened when the Golden State Warriors got good in the NBA, or when the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. Suddenly, everyone in those markets became basketball and hockey fans. That's what will happen with F1 in America, except the market is the entire country. And the ripple effects, they're going to be massive. For GM, Cadillac is just the start, but other American powerhouses are watching. Expect brands like Coca-Cola, Nike, and Apple to jump in fast once they see an American team fighting at the front. American engineers who dreamed of working in F1 are going to have a path. American drivers who thought F1 was impossible are going to have hope. And American fans who felt like outsiders are going to have a home. What's happening here could rewrite the DNA of American motorsport. Now, let's be realistic about what Cadillac is walking into. The current grid isn't exactly welcoming to newcomers. You've got Red Bull, who've basically perfected the art of F1 dominance. Mercedes, who are always one regulation change away from returning to the top. Ferrari, who have more F1 history than everyone else combined. McLaren, who are currently the best of the rest and climbing fast. Then there's the midfield. Aston Martin spending big Alpine running Renault power for one final year. And Williams climbing back with Mercedes muscle. Even Haas, the lone American team for now, is finally finding rhythm again. Where does that leave Cadillac? Probably fighting with whoever's at the back of the grid in 2026. But here's the thing about F1. The back of the grid today can be the front of the grid tomorrow if you get the regulations right. Remember Racing Point in 2020? They basically copied the 2019 Mercedes, and suddenly they were winning races. Brawn GP in 2009. They nailed the double diffuser loophole and won both championships. In 2018, McLaren was stuck in 6th, a shadow of its former self. By 2021, they were back on top, taking a shock victory at Monza. F1 is cyclical. Teams rise and fall based on how well they adapt to regulation changes. And 2026 is the biggest regulation change in over a decade. So, here's the billion-dollar question. Will Cadillac be the next Brawn GP, the team that came out of nowhere to dominate, or will they be the next HRT? All hype, no substance, gone in a few years. Cadillac is going to struggle in 2026. They're going to be fighting for points, not podiums. The European media is going to have a field day talking about American arrogance and European superiority. There will be DNFs, embarrassing qualifying sessions, and moments when people question whether this whole project was a mistake. 2027 is the warm-up. That's when all that early unrestricted development work starts paying off. When the driver's input finally takes shape and the American engineers start making noise. Next comes the milestone. GM's own power unit expected as early as 2028. When that engine roars to life, Formula One's not just getting a new team, it's getting a wake-up call. America doesn't show up to fit in. It shows up to take over. So, I want to know what you think. Drop a comment and let us know. What's a realistic goal for Cadillac's debut? 1 point and a parade, or are they just testing weapons for 2028? Hit that subscribe button because American F1 domination is coming and you're going to want a front row seat for every single lap.